everyone, it's Killian here, and in this video I'm going to do basic enemy behavior. One thing I want to mention from the previous video is that when you walked through the door like this, yeah, gotta pick up the key, of course, like that. And when going back to the door, it opens, but it doesn't do the flip anymore. But what it does do is this, plays the audio sound. To fix that, we are going to go to our door script, and in the else, we're going to do a else if is opened. Yeah. So hopefully that should do the trick. Let's go back to our door, pick up the key. Yeah, it worked. So for now that's good. But to do more enemy behavior, I'm going to expand our level a little bit by making this room a little bit bigger, and the other one I'm going to create a bigger room behind this door. So let's just widen this up. And also a handy shortcut on our keyboard when you want to focus on an object is pressing the F button to then focus on the object. Make these cubes bigger. Going to quickly do this. Then this one, just expand it like that. Good for now. And then we are going to make this smaller. Oops, yeah. And that one delete. I'm going to duplicate that one. And then duplicate another time. Yeah. And delete this one, duplicate that one, move it to here, make this one a little bit bigger, and then just for doing things simpler, we'll duplicate this and it should be good. Yeah. Okay, so now we have our level a little bit expanded, and we can create the most important thing we are going to need, or actually just to do, yeah, make some obstacles like this cube over here. Make it a little bit bigger like that. Yeah. And maybe put it like, rotate it. So I do this. Yeah. And the sphere we're going to create, going to make it bigger. Yeah. And over here we're going to add a cube. Where is it? It's here. I'm going to create a platform where enemies can spawn, for example. Yeah. And duplicate this one. Rotate it about minus 45. Let's do minus 30. Yeah. to global, so it's a nice smooth transition. Yeah, it's not going to be perfect. That should do it. So yeah, for now we're going to create the most important object that we are going to need, and that is the navmesh. For that we're going to go to window and then navigation. The maximum slope is going to be set to 35, so we can set our agent radius, how large the radius of our players, how large the height of our players, and the step height, and then click on big. Of course it isn't working. What's the problem? Let's see. Yeah, we need to change everything that we that consists of the level to a little gap over here to a static state, and then we go to navigation and click on bake. Yes, okay. So now Unity has created our navmesh. As you can see, the blue mesh that's they're all on top of it. It also creates it also avoids obstacles like the sphere we put in here, and I assume this one is the rigid body. So remove component, and then we're gonna do again the static, go to navigation and clear and bake again. Yeah, so now it has created also the obstacle here through the door, and of course up our slope. So now that we have our navmesh ready, we are going to create a script called enemy. It will contain all of our basic enemy behavior we're going to do for this video. I'm going to do another video which will contain some more advanced artificial intelligence behavior, like seeking for cover and flanking the player. For now we're just going to do a following and also a natural attacking. So let's create our enemy, and we're going to just make it a cube that's going to follow us. So let's create a cube. Yeah, here it is. And to see how large it is, I'm going to take a reference on our game view. That will do for now. So let's name it enemy. Do a box collider. Yeah, that's good for now. Create a new folder called prefabs, and in here we're going to put our enemy as a prefab. So we have saved it now. We are also going to create a script in our scripts folder called spawner. So what we're going to do now is mess with the spawner script, and we are basically going to put everything in our void in our start method. So create a public integer of let's say spawn amount, and we're going to put it on 5, and then yeah, the public game object, enemy prefab, and then in our void start we are going to do a for loop. A for loop is basically a loop that gets continued over and over again until a certain certain flag is raised. Like if we're going to do an integer type of I for iteration, and then put it at 0, and then we're going to say if I is smaller than the spawn amount, I increment every loop. Then we say that whenever I is smaller than 5, it will execute this code, and whenever I is equals to 5, or whatever the spawn amount is, it will break out of the for loop. So let's what we want to do is spawn an enemy every time we loop. So what we are going to do is a instantiate, and it takes the enemy prefab, then the transform, the parent. Well, actually, just let's do then this dot get component transform and get the position of the spawner, then this get component transform, and for the rotation I'm just going to do a quaternion class dot identity, and now just specify it as game object, and then let's assign it to enemy instance. Yeah. Okay. So that that should do it for now. Then go back to our Unity and open the enemy script. And here we are going to create a public float stopping distance. So we are going to specify at how much the player needs to stop in front of the player, and let's create it at a 0.5 distance. And we are also going to create a private Navmesh agent, a variable called agent, and a private game object called player. And in the start method we are going to assign the agent to this dot get component type of Navmesh agent. This will basically steer our enemy, and the player we will do it by game object dot find game object with tag, and it's the public string player tag equals player, like that, and then do a player tag over here. Okay, and in the update method we are basically going to do a constant updating of the player's position to the Navmesh agent. So go to agent dot set destination of player dot get component transform dot position. So now every time a frame has passed, we will set the new position of our player, excuse me, to the agent's set destination. For now, I'm just going to do a quick if statement for our stopping distance. If the vector tree dot distance, so we're going to measure the distance between the player and the enemy. So this dot get component transform dot since we're doing this don't get transformed all the time, I'm just going to create a transform and then player T, and the player T is going to be assigned the player dot get component of type transform, like that. Yeah, and here we're just going to do player T dot position, and then here player T dot position, and then the or rather do this one at second, and then this dot get component transform dot position. If it's larger than the stopping distance, we are going to execute this line of code, and otherwise it's not going to do anything. So that's it for our enemy for now, and our spawner. Let's hook everything up in Unity. We are going to create a empty game object, and we are going to put it right oh, it's really off. Just the 0 and up with it, so it's above on our platform, like that. And we're going to create name it spawner, yeah, and add our spawner script on it, and of course our enemy prefab, which of course still needs the component of Navmesh agent. Yeah, our spawner has it, and our enemy also needs our script enemy. Yeah, so now if we play our game, 5 enemies should be added to our world. So we're going to pick up our key, and we see that our enemies are following us, but it also appears that our enemies have gone through the door without stopping. Actually, it's a little wonky, so let's stop it, and if we do the stopping distance to 1.5, we will see that it will be a little bit better. There you are. Well, actually it's not going to be any better because the enemies are pushing upon each other, so yeah. We are firstly going to fix the fact that the enemies are entering through our door, and to do that, actually to fix that problem, we need to set this object to a certain specific, what was it again? Yeah, we need to add a component from navigation and call it navmesh obstacle, and set the carve checkbox to true, and they carve only when stationary. So let's play, and hopefully our enemies will not go through the door. and it appears that they're not going to our door. We can watch what they are doing on the scene view. Yeah, as you can see, the enemies are all packed together behind the door. And if we enable our Navmesh view, you can see that by putting the Navmesh obstacle on our game object, it carves inside the Navmesh like we need. So if we go back to our game and pick up that key, we can see that the game object, that the Navmeshes created a new Navmesh. But sorry, that was a rather weird explanation. Unity created a new Navmesh. So that's the functionality we need. And now we are going to make it that the enemies can attack our player. So we are going to need to go back to our player script, add a new variable on top of it called public float, and then health, set it to 100 by default, and we're going to create a public method, public void do damage, and a float value. And whenever another script calls for do damage, we are going to lower our health by the value. Actually, let's call it amount. Yeah. Now go back to our enemy script, and whenever the player is inside this radius, we are going to do a get component type of our player script, and then do a do damage with let's say create a new public float damage amount 15 should be good, and then the damage amount. So let's go back to our player script, and then we need to add our public void update method again, and here we're going to check if our health is beneath a certain value. So if health equals is smaller of or equals 0, basically the player is dead. We do a then we can basically show a little text on the screen saying that the player is dead, and we can also freeze the game. So by freezing the game, we're gonna do that by going to application or rather by going to time scale equals 0. By that we say that the game has to stop emulating. And also let's create a public game object for our UI element. UI is dead. We're going to quickly create our UI element by going game to game object UI and then the text. Let's go to our game view. By creating any type of UI element, Unity will also add the canvas element and the event system element. For the canvas, we are going to do a screen space overlay, pixel perfect, and set the canvas scaler to scale with screen size and do it on 0.5, so it's scaling with either the height, width and the height at the same time. The text is going to be called our player txt, and in the center and the position will be 00, and also text alignment will be in the center, and we will say that the font size a little bit larger. Let's create a bigger width and a height to 200, and then you can do the font a little bit bigger like that. 59 will do. Do it in red. Well, actually do it in black, it's a little bit better. And yeah, wrap. Okay, disable it, and then we go back to our player, and on the player script we are going to add our txt det. So check our enemy if we do, yeah, okay, so let's play again. Let's open the door for our enemies and let's die. I think something is going awfully bad over here. Player. Ah yeah, I see it. So we do only do the time scale, but we don't do the UE is dead, so is dead not set active equals true. That should work. Let's play again. Open up our door. And now it should work. Yeah, it's awfully quick, but it worked. So okay folks, that's it for this video. In the next video I will expand a little bit more on our enemy behavior with the advanced AI. Sorry, not the advanced AI, but just expand a little bit more. And then after that we will create our weaponry and the ability to shoot at the enemies.